This bike has a longer wheelbase than the old version, just like my stance, so it's really stable. Pow! Boom. Hey, I'm Jenn Jackson. We're here in the pits in Mont Saint Anne, and this is my 2023 Canyon LUX World Cup race bike. So we switched to the 2023 model of the LUX midway through this season, and it's been a really awesome change. It's moved towards the more new school geometry we're seeing for cross-country bikes. So the wheelbase is a little bit longer, a little bit slacker head tube angle and steeper seat tube. So these all play to the new characteristics we're seeing on cross-country race courses where the terrain is more technical. The reach on the bike got longer on each model by about 15 mils, and with that, I actually went down a size just to preserve the fit and the drop that I wanted, so I can run a little bit longer stem, get the front end a little bit lower, which is better for my pedaling position, which over the course of the race is more valuable to me than having a really upright position. For the descending, it's more about managing the descending than maximizing the descending over the course of a full race. So with the new model, they retained the same suspension design, but changed the linkage a teeny bit. So we're getting a little bit more progressive of a setup, so a better pedaling platform, which of course with cross-country pedaling that's where the races are really won and lost. You need to be able to have a really solid platform on the bike. We have the dual lockout on our suspension, so the bike can be fully locked out or open. And the only time that I'm locking out the bike is when I'm standing on a steep smooth climb or on a paved section. Otherwise the bike is super stiff and comfortable to pedal. So right now I'm running a Schwalbe Racing Ray Ralph combo in the 2.35. This is what I've been training on first couple days here in Mont Saint Anne, going for the higher volume tire just for a little bit of extra traction on the rocks and to smooth out the rough terrain. We're also running tire inserts on these, which reduces the likelihood of a pinch flat at the bead and also just gives the sidewalls a little bit more support. These are the lighter sidewall version of the tire, and so that will save some weight, but with the tire insert you still get a little bit more stability that you would feel if you're running a lower TPI casing. Those are mounted up onto some DT Swiss 1200 wheels. I'm running the 25mm rim width here. I'll often run the 30, but a little bit less rotational weight on the 25 mils in the rim. So for the climbing here, slow climbing and accelerations, that's pretty nice. We're running Fox suspension on our bike, so we have the float DPS in the rear, and up front I'm running the 34 step cast in a 110. The bike Geo is spec stock with a 100, which gives the bike a 68.5 degree head angle, but with the 110 I'm out to 68. So the bike it's pretty slack, but with how I have the cockpit set up, I still feel like I have the nimbleness and the handling that I need, but I'm really enjoying running the 34 and in the 110. The 34 just has a little bit better initial stroke, a little bit more suppleness compared to the 32, which when you're riding it, again, allows me to leave the bike unlocked when I'm pedaling, and then it just kind of rolls through the terrain a little bit better and is a little bit easier on the wrists and hands when you're already running the bike pretty stiff to optimize it for the pedaling. The 110 comes with 2 volume spacers in it, so it's pretty progressive for how small the fork is. But yeah, so far it's been really good. It's fun to play with, and I'm figuring that out as we go. It's a little bit different for every track, but it's kind of a fun puzzle to work through and starting to understand both the bike and then my riding style a little bit better. So on the fork last weekend we had a really muddy race in snowshoe, so our mechanics have actually covered up the back of the fork crown, which is hollowed out to save weight, but when it's really muddy and the mud's getting flung up onto the bike, it packs full of mud, so this just keeps it out. So that's a nice way to save a little bit of weight when things get messy. We also have a little bit of tape just covering part of the tight linkage down near the bottom bracket, so you don't collect mud, and then also the linkage doesn't jam up so bad. We're kitted out with the Shimano Xtr Drivetrain here. We're running a 1051 cassette in the back, and I have a 34 tooth chainring up front. We have been running 32s on some of the steeper, more grindy courses, but for this part of the season when we have a little bit faster flowing and always in the short tracks, we're running either a 34, or if it's super fast, flat short track, we could even run a 36. We also have on these bikes, just from Canyon, just a teeny little chain guide. Just if you're pedaling and shifting through rough terrain, just keeps the chain from bouncing off, and it's just a nice little fail-safe we have on there. I run 170mm cranks. M actually runs the 165, so I think most people are going on the shorter length for cranks, just again depending on your proportions, but then also to maintain the cadence and then not have too high of peak torque when you're climbing on steep, grindy terrain. We have the new Shimano Xtr Pedals, which have been really reliable through the tricky, muddy conditions, and then also over the course of a season, you just have a nice, consistent pedal. You don't need to worry about springs wearing out or bearings. These things are pretty much bomb-proof. I'm running a 34-tooth chainring, mostly for the higher speeds on the short track, but then also when the climbs get steep, but they're not like heinously long and steep, you kind of end up in your easiest gear in the back anyways. So as long as you can turn the gear without like bogging down too bad, you might as well leave a little bit bigger chainring on and you'll probably go faster. But joking aside, I think the 34 is good on climbs that don't have too much really long, grindy climbing, even if it's a steeper, short pitch. And as long as you can get over it, the bigger chainring also just retains a little bit more tension when you're at the bottom of the cassette. So if it's a fast course, you get less chain slap. Just even the little bit of noise reduction is nice as well. We also have XTR brakes. These are the lighter version with only 2 pistons front and rear and 160mm rotors. Some people will opt to run a 180mm rotor up front for a little bit higher braking power, but I think that the 160s matched with the 2 pistons for the entire cross-country setup of like the tires we run and like our size as riders, I think it's the kind of the right balance. You don't want to be overgunned on part of your bike with super heavy duty brakes and rotors, but then undergunned on something else like tires. So it's about finding the balance of your equipment and then making the best of what you want to use. We have the Fox Transfer SL dropper post. So SL, super light. It's the lightest dropper post most people are running out here, and in the 100mm version. Up top on there, we have the Ergon SR saddle, carbon rails, and consistent. I run this one off-road on my mountain bike and on the road on my road bike as well. For the Cockpit, we have a integrated bar stem combo from Canyon. My bars are cut 700mm end to end, and the length of the stem, virtual length, is 90mm, which on the small frame, which has a reach of 430, is about matched to the old version running an 80mm stem on the medium. I actually run a narrower bar for the short track just to give myself a little bit more space to move around and defend the bars where I don't need the stability of the wider 700s. We also have on there Ergon, the new slide-on grips from Ergon. So those, again, they're about half the weight of the old lock-on ones that we were running. And in places like that where you can retain comfort, performance, but save weight, it's a no-brainer to do. Those have been really good to us. We've been running them for the whole World Cup season so far. On the left, we have our dropper lever and lockout lever. We've optimized the lever positions so that it's easy to use them in quick succession. I am using my dropper post a lot more than the lockout over the course of the race. So I've prioritized my dropout lever position and then adjusted the lockout to accommodate that a little bit. Since, again, the pedaling platform of the bike is great, I find I'm not using the lockout a ton in the race, just at key moments on the start-finish straight or for some punchy bits, which then it's easier if I have to shift my hand a little bit to get the lever as well. So the Canyon LUX has space for 2 bottle cages on all size models, so extra small right up to the large and extra large, which for our racing isn't essential, but for going out on long trail rides, training days, or marathon racing is, I don't want to say game-changing, but it is super, super nice. Being able to just carry that extra water when you're out for a big day is both convenient and a cool feature. I think it just adds to what cross-country riding is about beyond racing. Okay, so in the fork I have 77 PSI and I have my rebound set to 9. I've dialed back the compression a little bit to run it at 10 right now here in Mont Saint Anne. In the rear I have 86 PSI and I'm running 7 rebound there. Because the platform of the LUX, it's not the traditional, you set it to approximately your weight in pounds. You do run it quite a bit lower. And in the shock, I've also gone up to a 0.8 volume spacer from the 0.4 that I was running before. That just lets me run the pressure, again, a little bit, just a hair lower, but mostly to avoid the harsh bottom outs. So the larger volume spacer just helps it with a little bit more progressive feel, which I think suits my riding style a little bit better. It's always a work in progress. There it is. That's my Canyon LUX race bike. Just about ready to go here in Mont Sainte Anne. Hope to see you out there.